Marcus Chun never expected his diplomatic mission to the Zephyrian homeworld would start with him accidentally complimenting an alien girl and watching her turn 3 different shades of purple. But there he was, standing in the pristine white corridors of the Celestial Harmony, humanity's first interstellar diplomatic vessel, staring at what he could only describe as the most beautiful being he'd ever seen. The girl couldn't have been more than 20 in human years, though with the Zephyrians' extended lifespans, she might have been closer to 60. Her skin had the characteristic pale blue tint of her species, with intricate silver markings that seemed to shimmer and move like liquid mercury across her temples and down her neck. Her eyes were large and luminous, a deep violet that reminded Marcus of Earth's twilight sky. What caught his attention most, though, were the delicate crystalline structures that grew from her scalp where humans would have hair, catching the ship's artificial light and casting tiny rainbows across the walls. Marcus had been rushing through the corridors, late for his briefing with Ambassador Reynolds, when he rounded a corner too quickly and nearly collided with her. She was studying a holographic display showing Earth's solar system, her head tilted in that curious way Zephyrians did when they were concentrating. "Oh, sorry," Marcus had blurted out, steadying himself against the wall. "I didn't see you there. You're beautiful." The words had slipped out before he could stop them. It wasn't even conscious. It was the kind of thing you might say to anyone after nearly bowling them over, a reflexive attempt to lighten an awkward moment. But the effect on the Zephyrian girl was immediate and dramatic. Her pale blue skin flushed to a deep purple, the color starting at her cheeks and spreading down her neck and arms like spilled ink. Her crystalline hair structures began to chime softly, producing a sound like wind through crystal bells. She took a step back, her large eyes widening even further, and for a moment Marcus thought she might flee. Instead, she straightened to her full height, which brought her almost to Marcus's eye level, and fixed him with an intense stare. When she spoke, her voice carried the melodic quality all Zephyrians possessed, but there was something else in it too, a tremor that Marcus couldn't quite identify. "Say it again, human." It wasn't a request. It was a demand, delivered with an authority that seemed to emanate from somewhere deep within her. The purple flush remained on her skin, but her expression had shifted from shock to something Marcus couldn't read. Determination, maybe, or challenge. What? Marcus stammered, suddenly, very aware that he knew almost nothing about Zephyrian social customs. The diplomatic briefings had covered the basics. Don't touch their crystalline hair, avoid direct eye contact during formal greetings, never interrupt their singing, but nothing about what happened when you called one of them beautiful. "You said I was beautiful," she continued, taking a step closer. "Say it again." Marcus felt his own cheeks warming. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. I don't know much about your customs, and offend me?" The chiming from her hair intensified, and if Marcus didn't know better, he would have sworn she was laughing. "Human, do you not understand what you have done?" Before Marcus could answer, the sound of footsteps echoed down the corridor. Ambassador Reynolds appeared around the corner, flanked by 2 of her aides, and looking distinctly unhappy. "Mr. Chun, there you are. We've been waiting for her." She stopped short when she saw the Zephyrian girl, and Marcus watched as her diplomatic training kicked in. Her expression shifted to one of polite interest, though he could see the questions in her eyes. The girl, Marcus realized he didn't even know her name, turned to face the ambassador. As she did, she performed the traditional Zephyrian greeting, placing both hands over her heart and lowering her head slightly. The gesture caused her crystalline hair to chime again, a sound that seemed to fill the corridor with harmony. "Ambassador Reynolds," she said, her voice now carrying the formal cadence Marcus recognized from the diplomatic recordings. "I am Lyralii, 3rd daughter of the Crystal Throne, student of intersystem relations aboard this vessel. I was just making the acquaintance of your colleague." Marcus felt his stomach drop. 3rd daughter of the Crystal Throne. He just called Zephyrian royalty beautiful, and then stammered through an apology like a schoolboy. Ambassador Reynolds' smile became even more diplomatic. "How wonderful. Mr. Chun is one of our most promising young diplomats. I hope he's been representing humanity well. Lyralii turned back to Marcus, and he saw something in her violet eyes that might have been amusement. "Oh yes," she said. "Very well indeed. We were just discussing linguistic expressions between our species." The ambassador nodded. "Excellent. Cultural exchange is so important. Mr. Chun, shall we proceed to the briefing room? I'm sure Princess Lyralii has her own duties to attend to." As they began to move away, Marcus felt compelled to look back. Lyralii was watching him go, her skin still faintly purple around the edges. When their eyes met, she mouthed something that looked like "later," and Marcus felt a strange flutter in his chest. The briefing room was a sterile space designed for serious diplomatic work. Ambassador Reynolds took her seat at the head of the table, her aides arranging themselves on either side. Marcus sat across from them, trying to focus on the mission parameters being outlined, but his mind kept drifting back to purple flushed skin and chiming crystal hair. "The Zephyrians are a proud people," Reynolds was saying, "with strict social hierarchies and ancient traditions. Their decision to enter into formal relations with humanity is unprecedented. In their entire recorded history, they have never established diplomatic ties with a species they considered inferior." Marcus forced himself to pay attention. "What changed their minds?" "From what we can gather, it was our music," one of the aides, Dr. Sarah Kim, replied. "Specifically, a piece by Beethoven that was included in the Voyager probe. When they finally intercepted it, centuries later, they declared it proof that humanity possessed what they call harmony of spirit. The Zephyrians believe that the universe operates on principles of harmonic resonance," Reynolds continued. "They see beauty and truth as fundamental forces, like gravity or electromagnetism. To them, the ability to create truly beautiful things isn't just artistic talent. It's evidence of a species' worthiness to exist among the stars." Marcus thought about Lyralii's reaction to being called beautiful. What about personal relationships? Do they have concepts similar to our romantic attractions? Dr. Kim consulted her notes. "That's where things get complicated. Zephyrian society is built around what they call harmonic bonding. When two individuals achieve perfect resonance, emotional, intellectual, and aesthetic, they become bonded for life. It's extremely rare and considered the highest possible achievement for an individual. The interesting thing," Reynolds added, "is that harmonic bonding isn't limited to their own species. Their historical records mention a few cases of bonds with members of other races, though none with humans, obviously. Such bonds are considered sacred, and the bonded individuals are elevated to special status within their society." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "What triggers this bonding?" "Recognition of perfect beauty," Dr. Kim said. "When a Zephyrian encounters something they perceive as truly beautiful, not just attractive, but fundamentally, universally beautiful, it creates a harmonic resonance that can lead to bonding. It's involuntary and irreversible." The room fell silent for a moment. Finally, Reynolds spoke again. "Mr. Chun, I trust you'll be extremely careful in your interactions with the Zephyrian delegation. We can't afford any cultural misunderstandings that might jeopardize these negotiations." Marcus nodded, though his mind was racing. If calling Lyralii beautiful had triggered some kind of harmonic response, what did that mean? Was she experiencing this bonding process? And if so, what were the implications for both their species? The briefing continued for another hour, covering trade agreements, territorial boundaries, and joint research initiatives. Marcus tried to absorb the information, but his thoughts kept returning to those violet eyes and the way Lyralii's voice had trembled when she demanded he repeat his words. When the briefing finally ended, Marcus made his way back to his quarters, hoping to process everything he'd learned. The corridors of the Celestial Harmony were quieter now, most of the crew attending to their evening duties or resting before the next day's formal negotiations. He was almost to his door when he heard the soft chiming of crystal hair behind him. "Human." Marcus turned to find Lyralii standing at the far end of the corridor. She'd changed from her formal diplomatic robes into something simpler, a flowing garment that seemed to be made of the same material as starlight. Her crystalline hair caught the corridor's dim lighting, creating patterns of light and shadow on the walls around her. Princess Lyralii, Marcus said, attempting a formal tone despite his nervousness. I hope I didn't cause any diplomatic incidents earlier. She walked toward him, her movements graceful and deliberate. As she drew closer, Marcus could see that her skin still held the faintest hint of purple, as if his words had left a permanent mark. You still have not said it again, she observed, stopping just out of arm's reach. Marcus felt his heart rate increase. Said what again? You know what? Her voice was soft, almost vulnerable, but there was steel beneath it. I've been thinking about it all day. About the way you said it. About the way it made me feel. Princess, I don't think I understand the cultural implications of— Forget culture, Lyralii interrupted, her eyes flashing. Forget diplomacy and protocol and everything else. I want to hear it again, because when you said it for the first time in my life, I felt something I had only read about in the ancient texts. She took another step closer, and Marcus could smell something like ozone and flowers, the distinctive scent of her species. What did you feel? He asked, though he was beginning to suspect he already knew the answer. Harmony, she whispered. Perfect, impossible harmony. The kind that binds souls together across the vastness of space. She reached out as if to touch his face, then stopped herself. Do you know what this means for us? For our peoples? Marcus felt as if he were standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down into an abyss that held either destruction or transcendence. I think I'm beginning to understand. Then, say it, Lyralii said, her voice barely audible. Say it again, and let us see what harmony the universe has in store for us. Marcus looked into her violet eyes and saw the reflection of stars that hadn't been born yet, of futures that hung in the balance of a single word. He thought about diplomatic protocols and cultural sensitivities and the weight of two species' destinies resting on his shoulders. Then he thought about the way her crystalline hair had chimed when she'd flushed purple, and the way his heart had skipped when she demanded he repeat his words, and the impossible beauty of a universe that could bring two such different beings together across the vast emptiness of space. You're beautiful, he said, his voice steady and sure. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Lyralii's skin flushed that deep purple again, but this time it didn't stop there. The color spread across her entire body, and her crystalline hair began to chime with a complex harmony that filled the corridor with music. The sound was unlike anything Marcus had ever heard. It was the song of solar winds, and the whisper of gravity waves, and the birth cry of stars, all woven together into something that made his soul resonate in frequencies he didn't know he possessed. But more than that, something was happening to him as well. He felt a warmth spreading through his chest, a sense of connection that went deeper than words or touch or anything he'd ever experienced. It was as if someone had suddenly turned on a light in a room he hadn't realized was dark, revealing treasures he'd never known existed. The harmony lasted for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. When it finally faded, both of them were left staring at each other in wonder and terror. Oh, Lyralii breathed, her voice shaky. Oh, what have we done? Marcus reached out instinctively, and this time she didn't pull away. When their fingers touched, the harmony began again, softer this time, but no less profound. It was as if the universe itself was singing their names. I think, Marcus said, his voice rough with emotion, we've just changed everything. Down the corridor, hidden in the shadows of a maintenance alcove, Ambassador Reynolds lowered her recording device and allowed herself a small smile. Sometimes, she thought, the best diplomacy happened when you weren't trying to be diplomatic at all. The next morning would bring new challenges, new questions, and new possibilities. The formal negotiations would take on meanings that no one had anticipated. The relationship between humanity and the Zephyrians would be forever altered by a chance encounter and a carelessly spoken compliment. But for now, in the quiet of the ship's evening cycle, two souls from different worlds discovered what it meant to achieve perfect harmony. And in the vast darkness of space, their bonded light began to shine. The news of the harmonic bonding between Marcus and Lyralii spread through the celestial harmony like wildfire, though not in the way Marcus had expected. Instead of scandal or diplomatic crisis, he woke to find his quarters surrounded by Zephyrian delegation members, all of them chiming softly in what he was beginning to recognize as expressions of wonder and reverence. Ambassador Reynolds found him in the ship's cafeteria 3 hours later, nursing his third cup of coffee and trying to make sense of the overnight messages that had flooded his personal communicator. Representatives from both species were requesting audiences, interviews, biological scans, psychological evaluations, and in one case, what appeared to be a marriage proposal from someone claiming to be a Zephyrian poet. "How are you holding up?" Reynolds asked, sliding into the seat across from him. Marcus gestured at his communicator, which was still pinging with incoming messages. "I'm not sure. Is it always this complicated when you accidentally become the center of interstellar attention?" "In my experience, yes." Reynolds flagged down a server. "Coffee, please. The strong stuff." She turned back to Marcus. "The good news is that the Zephyrian High Council has moved up the formal negotiations by 2 days. They want to discuss what they're calling the bonding implications as soon as possible. The bad news: 3 separate human news networks have somehow gotten wind of the story. Apparently, human diplomat achieves mythical alien soul bond is compelling enough to warrant breaking news coverage across 5 sectors. Marcus groaned and put his head in his hands. "This is exactly what we didn't want to happen." "Actually," Reynolds said, accepting her coffee from the server, "this might be exactly what we did want to happen, just not the way we planned it." Before Marcus could ask what she meant, the cafeteria's main door chimed, and Lyralii entered. The change in her appearance was immediately obvious to everyone in the room. Her skin held a permanent iridescent quality now, shifting between pale blue and silver as she moved. Her crystalline hair had grown longer overnight, the individual structures more complex and musical. When she walked, she seemed to glide rather than step, and there was an otherworldly quality to her presence that made the human crew members stop their conversations to stare. But what struck Marcus most was her eyes. They'd changed from violet to a deep purple that seemed to contain swirling galaxies. When she looked at him, he felt that harmonic resonance again, gentle but constant, like a song playing at the edge of his hearing. "Marcus," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that made the words resonate in his chest. "Ambassador Reynolds, I hope I'm not intruding." "Not at all, Princess," Reynolds said, gesturing to an empty chair. "Please join us. I was just briefing Mr. Chan on the accelerated negotiation timeline." Lyralii took the offered seat, and immediately the air around their table seemed to shimmer slightly. Marcus noticed that the other humans in the cafeteria were beginning to look drowsy, their expressions peaceful and content. "That's the harmony field," Lyralii explained, noticing his observation. "I cannot control it yet. The bonding has enhanced all of my natural abilities. My people are excited about the implications." "What kind of implications?" Marcus asked, though he was distracted by the way her crystalline hair chimed softly whenever she spoke. "In our recorded history, there have been only 7 documented harmonic bondings with alien species. Each one resulted in significant evolutionary advances for both peoples involved." Lyralii's expression grew serious. "The last one, 3,000 years ago, was with a species called the Melodari. Within 2 generations, both races had developed technologies that allowed them to reshape matter at the molecular level simply by achieving perfect harmonic frequencies." Reynolds nearly choked on her coffee. "Excuse me, what now?" "The bonding creates a bridge between species," Lyralii continued. "Not just emotional or spiritual, but biological and technological. The bonded individuals become conduits for their peoples to share knowledge, abilities, even genetic advantages." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "What happened to the Melodari?" "They transcended physical existence," Lyralii said simply, "along with the Zephyrians of that era. They became beings of pure harmony, existing in higher dimensions. We have had no contact with them since, though our philosophers believe they still guide us from beyond our perception. The cafeteria had grown quieter, and Marcus realized that the harmony field was affecting everyone within a 20-foot radius. Human and Zephyrian crew members alike were moving more slowly, their faces serene, as if they were all listening to the same beautiful, inaudible music. "Princess," Reynolds said carefully, "when you say that bonded individuals become conduits, what exactly does that mean for Marcus and yourself?" Lyralii reached across the table and took Marcus's hand. The moment their skin touched, the harmony field expanded, and Marcus felt something extraordinary happen. For just an instant, he could see through her eyes, feel through her skin, think with her mind. The experience was overwhelming, but also incredibly intimate, as if all the barriers that normally separated one consciousness from another had simply dissolved. Through their connection, he experienced her memories, growing up in a crystalline palace that sang with the voices of ancestors, learning to shape sound into physical form, studying the ancient texts that spoke of mythical bondings with alien races. He felt her initial shock at encountering a human who could perceive true beauty, her growing fascination with his alien thoughts and emotions, and beneath it all, a profound sense of completion, as if she had been waiting her entire life for this moment. At the same time, she was experiencing his memories, Earth's blue skies and singing birds, the warmth of human laughter, his childhood dreams of exploring the stars, his dedication to building bridges between different peoples. She felt his wonder at her alien beauty, his growing affection for her unique perspective, and his deep sense of responsibility for both their futures. When they separated, both of them were breathing hard. That, Reynolds said quietly, was definitely not in any of the cultural briefings. Over the next few hours, word of the bonding spread beyond the ship. Marcus found himself fielding calls from Earth Scientific Council, the Galactic Communication Network, and what appeared to be several alien species he'd never heard of, all wanting to study or meet the bonded pair. The most intriguing call came from Dr. Elena Vasquez, one of humanity's leading xenobiologists, speaking from the research station orbiting Proxima Centauri. "Mr. Chun," she said, her image flickering slightly on the holographic display, "I've been analyzing the reports of your bonding, and I believe you may be experiencing something even more significant than anyone realizes." "More significant how?" Marcus asked. Lyralii sat beside him in his quarters, her presence a constant source of warmth and harmony that made it difficult to focus on anything else. "We've detected harmonic frequencies emanating from your location that match theoretical calculations for what we call quantum consciousness bridging," Dr. Vasquez explained. "If our models are correct, you and Princess Lyralii may be unconsciously facilitating a form of quantum entanglement between human and Zephyrian neural patterns." Lyralii leaned forward, her crystalline hair chiming with interest. "What would this mean for our peoples? If the entanglement spreads, and all our data suggests it will, members of both species who come into contact with bonded individuals will begin to develop enhanced cognitive abilities, increased empathy, and potentially even limited telepathic connections with each other." Marcus felt his mouth go dry. "You're saying we might accidentally be triggering the next step in evolution for both our species?" "Not accidentally," Dr. Vasquez said, her expression grave. "The quantum patterns suggest this was always a possibility, waiting for the right harmonic trigger. Your bonding has essentially activated a dormant potential that exists at the intersection of human creativity and Zephyrian harmonic sensitivity." After ending the call, Marcus and Lyralii sat in silence for several minutes. Outside the viewport, stars wheeled slowly past, distant suns that might harbor other species, other possibilities, other forms of beauty waiting to be discovered. "Are you afraid?" Lyralii asked finally. Marcus considered the question. A week ago, he had been a junior diplomat with modest ambitions, and a comfortable, predictable future. Now, he was apparently the catalyst for a transformation that could reshape two entire civilizations. By any reasonable measure, he should be terrified. Instead, he felt a deep sense of rightness, as if everything in his life had been leading to this moment. When he looked at Lyralii, he didn't just see an alien princess or a diplomatic complication. He saw his partner in the truest sense, someone who understood him completely and shared his vision of a universe where different peoples could come together in harmony. "No," he said, reaching for her hand. "I'm not afraid. Are you?" Her skin flushed that beautiful purple again, and her crystalline hair produced a melody that sounded like hope made audible. "I am excited," she admitted. "For 3,000 years, my people have waited for another bonding, another chance to transcend our limitations. To experience it myself, to be chosen by the universe for this purpose, is terrifying and wonderful." They were interrupted by a chime from the door. Ambassador Reynolds entered, followed by a tall Zephyrian male whose crystal hair was ancient and complex, producing deep, resonant harmonies that spoke of age and wisdom. "Marcus Lyralii," Reynolds said, "I'd like you to meet High Harmonist Zethkari, the Zephyrian delegation leader. He has a proposition for both of you." The High Harmonist approached slowly, his movements formal and ritualistic. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that made the air itself seem to sing. "Young bonded ones," he said, "the Council of Harmonies has deliberated throughout the night. We have reached a decision that will require your courage and commitment." Lyralii straightened, and Marcus felt a flicker of nervousness through their connection. "The formal negotiations between our peoples were intended to establish trade agreements and territorial boundaries," Zethkari continued. "These matters now seem trivial in the face of what you have achieved. Instead, we propose something unprecedented." He paused, his crystalline hair producing a complex melody that seemed to fill the room with anticipation. "We propose the establishment of a new kind of diplomatic relationship, a harmony accord. Representatives from both species would live together, work together, and learn from each other in permanent mixed communities. The goal would not be mere cooperation, but true integration facilitated by bonded pairs like yourselves." Marcus felt Lyralii's excitement spike through their connection, but he had to voice the obvious concern. "High Harmonist, with respect, we're talking about fundamental changes to how both our species exist. What if something goes wrong? What if the integration has unexpected consequences?" Zethkari's expression grew solemn. "Young human, the universe does not offer such gifts without purpose. Your bonding is not a random occurrence. It is a sign that both our peoples are ready for the next phase of existence. To reject this opportunity would be to reject our own potential for growth." "But there would be volunteers only," Reynolds added quickly. "No one would be forced to participate. Communities would be established gradually, with extensive monitoring and support systems." "And Marcus and I?" Lyralii asked. "You will be the first," Zethkari replied. "The prototype for what such partnerships could become. Your experiences would guide the formation of future communities, and your children would be the bridge between our species." The word children sent a shock through both Marcus and Lyralii. Through their connection, he felt her wonder and fear mixing with his own. The idea of hybrid offspring hadn't occurred to him, but now it seemed not just possible, but inevitable. "Is that even biologically feasible?" Marcus asked. "According to our scientists, yes," Reynolds said. "Dr. Vasquez believes that the quantum entanglement created by your bonding has already begun to harmonize your genetic structures. Hybrid children wouldn't just be possible. They might represent an entirely new form of life." That evening, as the ship prepared for the accelerated negotiations, Marcus found himself standing at an observation deck, watching the stars. Lyralii joined him, her presence immediately filling the space with subtle harmonics that made the starlight seem to dance. "Do you ever wonder," she said, "if this is how the universe always intended for species to meet? Not through conquest or commerce, but through recognition of beauty." Marcus considered this. My people have a saying, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. We mean that attractiveness is subjective, personal. But when I look at you, I don't think that's what's happening. I think I'm seeing something objectively beautiful, something that exists independent of my personal preferences. That is the difference between mere attraction and true harmonic recognition, Lyralii agreed. You did not find me beautiful because I appealed to human aesthetic preferences. You found me beautiful because I am beautiful in a fundamental sense that transcends species boundaries. She turned to face him, her galaxy-deep eyes reflecting the starlight. The question is, are we ready to show both our peoples what that kind of beauty can create? Marcus thought about the risks, the unknowns, the tremendous responsibility they were taking on. Then, he thought about the harmony he felt whenever they touched, the sense of rightness that surrounded their connection, and the possibility that their bond might be the key to unlocking potentials that both species had only dreamed of. Yes, he said, taking her hand and feeling the familiar resonance begin. I think we are. Outside the viewport, a new star suddenly blazed a life in a distant nebula, its light taking its first steps on a journey that would span millennia. Neither Marcus nor Lyralii noticed it, but somewhere in the ship's computer systems, sensors recorded the event and noted its precise timing. Later, xenoarchaeologists would study the data and realize that new stars always seem to be born when two species achieved true harmony. They would theorize that consciousness itself might be a fundamental force in the universe, capable of triggering stellar formation through acts of love and understanding. But that was still in the future. For now, two beings from different worlds stood together in the starlight, their joined hands creating harmonics that rippled out through space and time, carrying the seeds of transformation to every corner of the galaxy. 6 months later, Marcus stood on the observation platform of New Harmony Station, watching the construction crews put the finishing touches on humanity's first mixed-species colony. The station orbited a young star system between Earth and the Zephyrian homeworld, chosen specifically for its harmonic resonance properties and the way its solar frequencies complemented both human neural patterns and Zephyrian crystalline biology. The changes in himself had been gradual but profound. His hair had begun to show subtle iridescent qualities, shifting between brown and copper depending on his emotional state. More significantly, he had developed what the scientists called harmonic perception, the ability to sense the emotional resonance of people around him and, to some extent, influence their mood through careful modulation of his voice and movements. Lyralii had changed as well. Her crystalline hair had grown more complex, developing new formations that could produce sounds beyond the normal Zephyrian range. She could now create harmonics that directly affected human brain chemistry, inducing states of calm, creativity, or deep focus. Together, they had become something neither fully human nor fully Zephyrian, but somehow more than the sum of their parts. The door chimed behind him, and he turned to CDR, Sarah Kim entering with a datapad and an expression of barely contained excitement. Marcus, we've got the latest reports from the volunteer settlements, she said. The results are even better than we hoped. She activated a holographic display that showed statistical breakdowns from 3 prototype communities where humans and Zephyrians were living and working together under the guidance of bonded pairs. Crime rates have dropped to virtually zero, Dr. Kim continued. Mental illness has decreased by 80% in both species. But, most remarkably, we're seeing unprecedented levels of innovation. The joint research teams are making breakthroughs at 10 times the rate of monospecies groups. Marcus studied the data. What about the children? Dr. Kim's smile widened. That's the really extraordinary part. The hybrid children aren't just healthy. They're displaying abilities we've never seen before. Enhanced pattern recognition, intuitive understanding of complex mathematical relationships, and something the Zephyrian researchers are calling reality harmonics. Reality harmonics? The ability to influence physical matter through focused harmonic frequencies, a melodic voice said from the doorway. Lyralii entered, her pregnancy now visible as a gentle curve beneath her flowing robes. The child they carried together was the first documented human-Zephyrian hybrid, and the entire galaxy seemed to be holding its breath to see what it would become. Our daughter, Lyralii, continued, placing a hand on her belly, has been actively communicating with us for the past 2 weeks, not through movement or sound, but through direct harmonic resonance. She is teaching us even before she is born. Marcus moved to her side, placing his hand over hers. Immediately, he felt it, a tiny consciousness unlike anything he had ever experienced. It was simultaneously ancient and brand new, carrying within it the accumulated wisdom of both their species while remaining uniquely itself. When he touched Lyralii's belly, he could feel their daughter's excitement, her eagerness to be born into a universe full of beauty and possibility. The quantum consciousness bridging effect has accelerated beyond our projections, Dr. Kim reported. We now have over 50,000 volunteers from both species living in integrated communities. Each new settlement seems to develop its own unique characteristics based on the bonded pairs who founded it. She gestured to another part of the display. Settlement Gamma 7, founded by the bonded pair of Engineer Rodriguez and Harmonist Veltheri, has developed biotechnology that can grow buildings from specially modified coral. Settlement Delta 12 has created art forms that exist in 11 dimensions simultaneously. And Settlement Theta 3 has figured out how to use harmonic frequencies to communicate instantaneously across interstellar distances. Marcus felt a surge of pride and wonder. Each bonded pair was becoming a unique catalyst for innovation, combining human ingenuity with Zephyrian harmonic sensitivity in ways that neither species could have achieved alone. There's more, Dr. Kim said. We've received contact requests from 12 other species who want to study our integration model. Apparently, news of successful harmonic bonding has spread throughout this entire galactic region. Before Marcus could respond, an alarm chimed throughout the station. Not an emergency alarm, but the soft, musical tone that indicated an incoming priority communication. The holographic display shifted to show Ambassador Reynolds, transmitting from Earth. Marcus, Lyralii, I hope you're both well, she said. I'm calling with extraordinary news. We've received a transmission from the Melodari Collective. Marcus felt Lyralii's shock ripple through their bond. The Melodari were the species that had achieved harmonic transcendence with the Zephyrians 3,000 years ago, supposedly ascending to higher dimensions and leaving physical existence behind. They've been watching our progress, Reynolds continued, and they've decided that humanity and the Zephyrians are ready for what they call the next gift. The transmission shifted to show a being of pure light and harmony, vaguely humanoid, but composed entirely of shifting patterns of energy that hurt to look at directly. When it spoke, its voice resonated across frequencies that Marcus could feel in his bones. Greetings, young bonded ones, the Melodari entity said. We have observed your species' first steps toward true harmony with great interest. Your daughter carries within her the potential to bridge not just 2 species, but multiple dimensions of existence. Lyralii gripped Marcus's hand tightly. What do you mean? She will be born with the ability to perceive and interact with the quantum substrate that underlies all reality, the entity explained. Through her, and others like her who will follow, your peoples will gain access to technologies and capabilities that will allow you to reshape the universe itself. Dr. Kim looked stunned. Reshape the universe how? Reality is far more malleable than your current science understands, the Melodari continued. Consciousness, harmony, and beauty are not mere emergent properties of complex systems. They are fundamental forces that can be directed and focused. Your bonded pairs are already unconsciously manipulating these forces. Your hybrid children will learn to do so deliberately. The entity paused, its form shifting to show what looked like star systems rearranging themselves into beautiful, impossible patterns. We offer you guidance in developing these abilities, but the choice must be yours. Accept our teaching, and your species will join us as shapers of reality itself. Refuse, and you will continue to develop naturally, though at a much slower pace. Marcus felt the weight of the decision settling on his shoulders. It was one thing to volunteer for an experimental colony, quite another to accept guidance that could fundamentally alter the nature of human and Zephyrian existence. What would accepting your guidance mean, practically? He asked. Selected bonded pairs would undergo training in what you might call reality engineering, the Melodari explained. You would learn to use harmonic frequencies to manipulate matter at the quantum level, to communicate across vast distances instantaneously, and eventually to create new forms of life and matter suited to any environment. And the risks? The same risks that face any species that gains significant power. The temptation to use these abilities for destruction rather than creation, the possibility of losing touch with the values and connections that make existence meaningful, the danger of becoming so focused on cosmic possibilities that you forget to care for each other. Lyrelii spoke up. What safeguards would there be? The bonding itself is the primary safeguard, the entity replied. Bonded pairs cannot use reality-shaping abilities for destructive purposes without causing feedback that would destroy them both. The universe has built-in protection against those who would use beauty and harmony for ugly ends. Over the following weeks, Marcus and Lyrelii consulted with representatives from both species, bonded pairs from the various settlements, and their own constantly growing understanding of what they were becoming. The discussions were complex and sometimes heated, with some arguing that they were moving too fast, accepting too much change without understanding the consequences. But in the end, the decision came down to a simple question. Did they trust the universe that had brought them together? Standing once again on the observation platform, this time surrounded by representatives from both species and several other alien races who had come to witness the decision, Marcus and Lyrelii prepared to give their answer. Their daughter had been born 3 days earlier, a perfect fusion of human and Zephyrian traits. Her skin held the Zephyrian iridescent quality, but in human tones, shifting from pale pink to warm gold, depending on her mood. Instead of crystalline hair, she had human hair that grew in spiral patterns and hummed softly when she was content. Her eyes were the deep blue of Earth's oceans, but with a galaxy-depth quality of Zephyrian sight. Most remarkably, her presence seemed to calm everyone around her. Even hardened diplomats found themselves smiling when she was in the room, and the most contentious negotiations became exercises in collaborative problem-solving when she was present. "We accept," Marcus announced, his voice carrying harmonics that Lyrelii had taught him, frequencies that conveyed sincerity and determination to every listener regardless of their species. "We accept the Melodari guidance, the responsibility it entails, and the future it offers." The Melodari entity materialized in the space above the platform, its form more solid and defined than before. "Then, let us begin your education in the true nature of reality." What followed was a demonstration that shattered every assumption Marcus had held about the nature of the universe. The Melodari entity guided him and Lyrelii through exercises in harmonic reality manipulation, showing them how focused frequencies could reshape matter at the molecular level, how consciousness could influence probability, and how beauty itself was a measurable force that could be harnessed and directed. Within hours, they were creating matter from pure energy, communicating telepathically with beings on distant worlds, and perceiving layers of reality that had been invisible before. Their daughter, sleeping peacefully in Lyrelii's arms, seemed to absorb the lessons effortlessly, her own developing consciousness expanding to accommodate concepts that would have driven adult minds to madness. But perhaps most importantly, they learned that these abilities came with an inherent moral framework. The universe itself seemed to resist any attempt to use reality-shaping powers for selfish or destructive purposes. The more beautiful and harmonious the intended outcome, the easier it was to achieve. The more ugly or discordant the goal, the more the cosmos itself pushed back. This is why bonding is required, the Melodari explained. Individual consciousness, no matter how advanced, can become corrupted by power. But bonded consciousness, consciousness that exists in permanent harmony with another, cannot sustain itself while pursuing ugly goals. The feedback loop prevents it. Over the following months, New Harmony Station became the center of a transformation that rippled outward through both human and Zephyrian space. Bonded pairs trained in reality engineering established new settlements on previously uninhabitable worlds, creating environments tailored to the needs of both species. They developed technologies that seemed like magic, ships that could travel instantly between star systems by harmonically resonating with their destination, terraforming systems that could transform dead rocks into garden worlds within weeks, communication networks that connected every bonded pair across the galaxy in a web of shared consciousness. But they also maintained their essential humanity and Zephyrian nature. The settlements were places of incredible beauty, but also of laughter, music, art, and all the simple pleasures that made life worth living. Children played in crystal gardens under alien suns while their parents reshaped reality with song and touch, but they also skinned their knees, got into trouble, and needed bedtime stories just like children always had. Marcus often found himself marveling at how the most profound changes had come not from grand gestures or cosmic revelations, but from a simple, honest compliment paid to a beautiful alien girl in a starship corridor. It seemed fitting that a universe built on harmony and beauty would work through such gentle means. 5 years after that first accidental compliment, Marcus stood in the garden of their home on New Harmony Prime, watching their daughter play with a group of hybrid children. They were creating impossible sculptures from crystallized music, while their laughter literally brightened the flowers around them. Lyralii approached from the house, carrying their infant son, who showed signs of even greater reality-shaping potential than his sister. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked, settling beside him on a bench that had grown from the ground at their approach. "The simple life you could have had if you'd never called me beautiful." Marcus considered the question seriously. He thought about the diplomat he might have been, handling routine trade negotiations and living out a comfortable, predictable career. Then, he looked at their children, at the transformed worlds spreading across the galaxy, at the other species now coming forward to request guidance in achieving their own harmonic bondings. "Never," he said, taking her hand and feeling the familiar resonance that had changed everything. "Although I do sometimes wonder what would have happened if I'd been too shy to speak up." Lyralii laughed, the sound creating small ripples in the fabric of space-time that made the nearby flowers chime in harmony. Then, some other human would have eventually called some other Zephyrian beautiful, and the universe would have found its way to this moment anyway. Beauty recognizes beauty, Marcus. It always has, and it always will. Their daughter looked up from her play and smiled at them, and for just a moment, Marcus could see through her eyes, see the vast web of consciousness that now connected thousands of worlds, the streams of harmony that flowed between species once separated by impossibly vast distances, the growing community of beings who had learned to recognize and nurture the beauty that existed in the space between stars. He realized exactly what he had called Lyralii that first day: beautiful. The universe itself had turned out to be beautiful, in ways he never could have imagined, and all it had taken to unlock that beauty was the courage to name it when he saw it. In the end, that might be humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy. Not their technology or their creativity or their adaptability, but their willingness to look at alien beings and see not threats or opportunities, but simply other forms of beauty waiting to be recognized and celebrated. The sun set over New Harmony Prime in colors that had never existed before human artists learned to paint with crystallized music, and Marcus Chun, former junior diplomat turned reality engineer, held his alien wife's hand and watched their impossible children play in gardens that grew from pure harmony, and knew that the universe was exactly as it should be.